Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight's fragment sports a headline that reads, Santa Claus is coming to town. And the body of this Christmas fragment reads as follows: Santa Claus is coming to town, and he is the one who better watch out. I will tell you why. I know when he is coming. All right, let's get started. 1. The song is an instrument of discipline. The seasonal lyric does more than decorate winter with melody. It instructs. A rule is smuggled inside a rhyme. The refrain, is coming to town, installs a horizon of approach that governs behavior in advance of the arrival. A gaze precedes the figure. The point is not December, nor a chimney, but obedience rehearsed in anticipation. The song teaches that conduct is supervised by an eye that does not sleep. It converts wonder into watchfulness. In this shape, childhood is formed by a grammar of being seen. A body learns to move inside the frame of an imagined witness. The witness is cheerful, but the cheer is the sugar that coats the discipline. The result is a memory that links good behavior to surveillance rather than to the intrinsic dignity of the act itself. 2. The inversion that reveals the mechanism. The fragment reverses the direction of fear. He is the one who better watch out. The sentence turns the myth inside out, and in doing so it exposes the seam that held the garment together. Authority relies on an asymmetry of knowledge. One sees, the other is seen. For knowledge, I know when he is coming, removes the mask of surprise. The aura of transcendence cannot survive punctuality. What arrives on schedule is not a god but an agent subject to time. This is the first crack. A calendar defeats an oracle. Where the power required mystery, the timetable gives it edges, and edges make a thing finite enough to be faced. 3. Calendars, clocks, and the fall of the miraculous. A miracle is not only a deviation from ordinary causality, it is a rupture in the rhythm of expectation. The decisive element is suddenness. The unforeseen breaks the shell of habit and forces a new posture. Once the hour of an arrival is known, the event decays from miracle into logistics. It can be guarded against, prepared for, intercepted, or ignored. Surprise is the soul of enchantment, for knowledge is its ash. When the fragment claims knowledge of the hour, the world returns to the human scale, where prudent readiness replaces anxious supplication. The divine costume is returned to the wardrobe, and the figure stands as a visitor, merely a traveler among travelers. 4. The reciprocity of the gaze. Discipline begins where the gaze is one-sided. A guard who can be observed is less a guard and more a functionary. When the watcher is watched, the geometry of power changes. Faces reappear. The fragment institutes reciprocity. The child, or the speaker, holds a line of sight upon the supposed sovereign. This is not a call for retaliation. It is the re-establishment of symmetry. Power that depended upon invisibility becomes accountable to the ordinary conditions of appearance. Being seen is not annihilation, but it is a limit, and limits humanize. 5. Language as the first surveillance device. Before there was the eye, there was the name. To name is to frame, to situate an object within a grammar that predetermines what can be said of it. The lyric names the audience children, and assigns them a morality index to Santa's omniscience. English, in this scene, carries the law inside its idiom. Yet language also permits reversal. The same tongue that installs the watcher can be turned to watch the installation. The fragment's English is insurgent English, a statement that returns the gaze by returning the sentence. The colonizer's instrument if one attends to the wider history of English in law, commerce. And schooling becomes the colonized person's tool for inspection, parody, and dismantling. A language does not belong to its first wielder once the sentence is learned by the one who was meant to be ruled by it. 6. The politics of appearing. Appearing is not trivial. Rituals of power choreograph appearance, so that the sovereign seems to step out of time. Pomp hides preparation, the red suit, the nocturnal entry, the fantastic conveyance. Each props up a theology of exception. The fragment places a clock against the pageantry. A known arrival dissolves the aura. Preparation is revealed as preparation. A door is just a door when the handle can be watched. The politics of appearing, then, gives way to the ethics of presence. A person is present as one among others and must give reasons rather than gifts as guarantees of legitimacy. 7. Gift, debt, and the economy of secrecy. A gift that demands obedience produces debt disguised as generosity. The song binds receipt to conduct. The accounting book is hidden inside the stocking. Secrecy sustains the illusion that the gift is grace. The fragment shreds the veil. Once the hour is known, the ledger becomes visible. Lists, routes, budgets, priorities. The gift loses priestly power and becomes an exchange whose terms can be discussed, accepted, refused, or renegotiated. To lose enchantment is not to lose goodness. It is to restore the plain daylight where kindness means what it says and does not smuggle a tribunal inside its ribbon. 8. Time as shared medium rather than divine weapon. In the lyric, time is a weapon held by the watcher. The present is a trap because inspection is perpetual. In the fragment, time is shared. Knowing the hour installs common temporality. A schedule is not a sword, it is a coordination. With coordination comes the possibility of consent, boundary, and preparation. The watcher who enters shared time accepts limit, and limit is the birthplace of trust. What cannot be scheduled cannot be answered. What can be scheduled can be greeted or refused without panic. In the pedagogy of deritualization, every culture educates by staging exceptions. Sacred days, holy figures, unpredictable inspections. Education also proceeds, however, by dismantling certain exceptions when they become instruments of domination. The fragment is a lesson in deritualization. It takes a rite that organized behavior by fear of unseen audit and converts it into an ordinary visit. To deritualize is not to desecrate. It is to reassign the object to its proper scale, so that reverence belongs to what is worthy rather than to what is merely theatrical. Children, students, citizens, each needs the courage and the method to perform such reductions without losing the capacity for wonder where wonder is due. And on wonder without surveillance. There is a difference between enchantment and intimidation. Enchantment dilates the sense, intimidation narrows it. The lyric's power was to blur these states. The fragment refuses the blur, wonder is kept, but its object changes. The snow, the candle, the taste of winter fruit, the laughter at a table, these retain their radiance without the threat of an omniscient ledger. The restoration is moral clarity, attention directed at the world rather than at the imagined judge who might be hiding in it. The theological residue and its critique. One recognizes in the song a diluted theology, omniscience, judgment, reward. The fragment performs a secular criticism by historic means. It does not deny the figure, it schedules him. The gesture is modest and radical at once. Modest because it accepts the scene, radical because it removes the attribute that made the scene metaphysical. When the attribute falls, the behavior at once coerced must seek new ground. Goodness becomes a matter for reasons. Reasons must be public, shareable, answerable. In this sense, the fragment completes a quiet reformation inside a nursery rhyme. The psychology of being seen. The body shaped by constant imagined inspection acquires a double consciousness. Attention splits between the task and the mirror inside the mind. Performance replaces presence. By returning the gaze to the watcher, the fragment heals the split. Attention can rest in the task. The internal auditor, deprived of theological fuel, grows quiet. This is not the dismissal of conscience. It is the refusal of its colonization by fantasy. A conscience belongs to a person, not to a surveillance device cosplaying as benevolence. English turned from edict to instrument. Consider the broader historical echo, English as the idiom of charter, tariff, oath, and mandate. The language arrived with courts and customs houses and catechisms. To learn, it was to enter an architecture that sorted bodies into permitted and forbidden. Yet every grammar learned is a tool that can be retuned. Writers from colonized worlds took the edict and made an instrument. Satire, testimony, parable, philosophy, these forms reverse the flow of authority, making the judge legible to the judged. The fragment stands with them, small in scale, equal in logic. The sentence that used to command begins to answer questions it did not intend to hear. Anticipation, preparation, and the right to refuse. For knowledge is not only power to ambush, it is power to decline. When arrival is predictable, boundaries can be drawn without rancor. A house can be readied or left dark. A letter can be written or withheld. The ethics of hospitality depends on this. Guests are welcomed, not smuggled. The fragment cares less about catching a trespasser than about restoring the distinction between entrance and intrusion. Even childhood deserves the dignity of that distinction. A note on play and seriousness. The line is playful, the analysis is serious. Play does not trivialize seriousness, it protects it. A culture that cannot play with its icons will be ruled by them. The fragment keeps laughter and removes servility. It turns the winter tale into a gymnasium where concepts can practice without bruising the people who carry them. If the result is a lighter heart, that is not because truth has been diminished, but because unearned fear has been removed from its pedestal. What remains after the reversal? After the watcher is watched, after the schedule replaces the omen, what remains is ordinary relation. Ordinary does not mean dull, it means speakable. One can ask for reasons and give them. One can disagree without blasphemy. One can negotiate without superstition. Gifts continue, but as kindness rather than currency of control. Joy continues, but as presence rather than compliance. In that ordinariness lies the possibility of justice, which is never delivered by miracle and always built by attention. The final clarification. Santa comes to town. That is the premise. The fragment accepts it and adds a sentence that changes everything. The time is known. With that knowledge, the world adjusts. Fear yields to readiness. Readiness makes room for consent. Consent invites accountability. Accountability humanizes power. Humanized power can be welcomed or refused without the theater of dread. And when dread is dismissed, the eyes that once searched the corners for a judge can be returned to the faces across the table. That is where ethics keeps house. Law without spectacle. A law that relies upon spectacle is insecure about its reasons. Spectacle distracts from argument. The lyric turned judgment into theater. The fragment removes the stage and asks for the statute. What offense is named? What remedy proposed? What process of appeal recognized? Where theater falls away, procedure must carry the weight. If the rule cannot be stated without a song, it likely cannot be justified without a silence in which questions are permitted. The humane order trusts processes more than pageants. Chronos and Kairos under one roof. Classical reflection distinguishes measured time, Chronos, from the charged instant, Kairos. The song claimed a permanent Kairos, an ever-looming moment ready to break the ordinary. The fragment restores Chronos, an hour on a clock, a date on a calendar, a finite interval within which a visit occurs. Kairos is not abolished, it is returned to events worthy of it. A vow freely made, a truth finally spoken, a reconciliation long prepared. Surveillance had attempted to monopolize Kairos. The fragment returns it to love and courage, where it belongs. The household as a republic of clarity. A household governed by hidden audits trains duplicity before it trains honesty. When inspection is imagined to be constant and invisible, confession becomes performance and apology becomes diplomacy. The fragment's logic suggests a small republic instead. Stated expectations, known times, explicit boundaries, visible reparations. In such a house, a mistake is addressed without ceremony, and trust is repaired with acts that can be seen. Fear recedes. Responsibility grows. The lamp on the table gives better light than the eye in the sky. Countergift, the gift of limits. If there must be a countergift to the mythology of omniscience, let it be the gift of limit. Limit is not deprivation, it is contour. It lets a face be a face rather than icon. It restores distance so that approach can be chosen. It frees the giver as well, to give because of regard rather than command, To rest when giving must pause, to say no without shame. A world of limits is a world where promise regains its meaning, because not everything can be promised. 22. Technique, device, and the modern Santa. The modern city has cameras rather than elves. The myth, however, persists in altered costume. Dashboards, doorbells, scoreboards, dashboards again. The plural is intentional because the screens multiply. The fragments maneuver remains applicable. Schedule the watcher. Name the interval. Publish the audit. Subject the algorithm to the same daylight that rules a person. The point is not to abolish devices, but to prevent their theology. Tools are welcome. Thrones for tools are not. The pedagogy of reversal. How does one teach the maneuver enacted by the fragment? Begin with small reversals that reveal mechanisms. Take a toy apart and put it back together. Read a contract aloud and annotate its terms. Rehearse a visit by stating the hour and the purpose. Ask what a costume accomplishes and who benefits from its effects. The lesson is not cynicism but patience, the capacity to remain with a thing long enough for glamour to separate from function. When glamour is named, function can be respected without fear. Respect grows sturdier when it is earned by clarity rather than borrowed from spectacle. 4. A coda in the winter key. The town becomes quiet at dusk, windows breathe. The world is not poorer because omniscience has been retired from the nursery. It is richer because dignity has taken its place. A figure may still come by, leaving kindness at a door. The act is sweeter when it does not recruit fear as its herald. Snow continues to exist without a tribunal. Laughter continues without an audit trail. The calendar turns. The house sleeps. No one is watching from the sky. The faces at the table are enough. 5. Final statement. Santa Claus is coming to town. The sentence remains. What has changed is the architecture around it. Knowledge of the hour has displaced the fog that once did the work of judgment. With the fog gone, the world has room for speech, refusal, welcome, boundary, and repair. The watcher shares the light with the watched, and in that shared light, the ancient sequence, fear, compliance, reward, finds itself replaced by another, attention, reason, responsibility. It is quieter. It is more human. It is enough.